The crystal dome stretched high above the gathering, its walls shining with colors that had no names in any human language. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her chair and looked around at the strangest meeting she had ever seen. 847 different alien species filled the massive space. Some floated in bubbles of gas. Others stood on dozens of legs. A few were just balls of light that pulsed when they talked. The Galactic Confederation had called this meeting for the first time in 300 years. Sarah knew why. They wanted to talk about humans. Next to her sat Dr. Marcus Webb, who studied alien life forms. Commander Rosa Vasquez sat on her other side, checking her tablet for the 100th time. Professor Jin Watanabe was writing notes on paper, which made several nearby aliens stare at him. Lieutenant David Okafor was listening to the translation device in his ear and frowning. "This is bigger than I thought," Marcus whispered to Sarah. His voice was quiet, but she could hear the excitement in it. "I count at least 50 species I've never seen before." "Stay focused," Sarah whispered back. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." At the center of the dome, a tall figure began to rise. Chancellor Vex Athala looked like she was made of silver mist that moved in the shape of a woman. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music, but the words that came through the translator were not friendly. "We gather today to discuss a problem," the Chancellor said. Her form shimmered as she spoke. "In 50 years, one species has caused more concern than any other in our history. The humans have shown a complete disregard for safety, wisdom, and the natural order of galactic civilization." Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she felt angry. The human race had worked hard to explore space. They had saved lives, discovered new worlds, and made friends with species the Confederation had never even met. But she said nothing. Not yet. "Let us review the evidence," Chancellor Vex Athala continued. A creature that looked like a giant spider made of crystal stood up. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound like breaking glass. "The humans have colonized 17 worlds that our surveys marked as completely deadly. These worlds have radiation levels that should kill any known life form. Yet humans live there and call them home." Another alien rose. This one was just a cloud of purple gas with eyes floating in it. "We have recorded humans flying their ships directly into the event horizons of black holes. They claim this is for research. No sane species approaches black holes." A third speaker looked like a tree made of metal. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Human colonies exist in sectors where our scouts have detected hostile alien activity. Yet the humans not only survive, but appear to be thriving. This suggests either incredible luck or dangerous alliances with unknown powers." The accusations continued for 2 hours. Sarah listened to each one and felt more confused than angry. The aliens were describing human activities, but they made everything sound wrong and dangerous. When the Hive Queen Zack spoke, Sarah finally understood what was really happening. The creature looked like a huge insect with hundreds of legs and glowing eyes. When it talked, the translator said the words came from billions of minds speaking together. "The humans must be stopped," the Hive Queen declared. "They spread too quickly into regions we have marked as forbidden. They ignore danger as if it does not exist. They treat the galaxy like their playground instead of respecting the territories that have been established for safe travel." Sarah realized the truth then. The Confederation was not angry because humans were being reckless. They were angry because humans were succeeding where the Confederation had failed. "In our records," another alien said, "no species has ever survived contact with the entities that live in the Outer Rim territories. Yet humans have established colonies there and report regular peaceful contact with beings we cannot even classify." Professor Jin looked up from his notes. "Sarah," he whispered, "they're afraid of us." "I know," Sarah whispered back. Chancellor Vex Athala raised one misty arm for silence. "The Confederation has voted. We will offer the humans a choice. Submit to our guidance and accept designated safe zones for expansion, or face complete isolation from galactic civilization." The dome fell silent. Sarah could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her and her team. Some of the stares felt curious. Others felt hostile. A few felt worried. "Admiral Chen," the Chancellor called. "You speak for your species. What is your response?" Sarah stood up slowly. Her chair made a small sound against the crystal floor that echoed in the huge space. She looked around at all the different alien faces, forms, and energy patterns watching her. "May my team and I have a moment to discuss this?" she asked. The Chancellor nodded. "You have 5 minutes." Sarah sat back down and leaned close to her team. They put their heads together and spoke in voices so low that even the most sensitive alien hearing could not pick up their words. "They want to put us in a cage," Rosa said. "The safe zones cover less than 1% of the galaxy," Jin added. "I've been calculating while they talked." "They're scared of something," Marcus said. "Did you hear how they talked about the outer territories? They don't call them dangerous. They call them forbidden." "What do we do?" David asked. Sarah looked at each of her team members. They had been chosen for this mission, not just because they were smart, but because they represented the best of what humans could be. Marcus had survived 3 different alien plague outbreaks and found cures for all of them. Rosa had led successful defensive actions against hostile aliens that the Confederation didn't even know existed. Jin had figured out faster-than-light travel by studying the inside of a black hole. David had learned to communicate with energy beings that existed in 11 dimensions. "We tell them the truth," Sarah said. "Which truth?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. "That we've seen what's really out there, and we're not afraid of it." The 5 minutes ended, and Sarah stood up again. This time she felt different. This time she felt ready to change everything. Sarah Chen walked to the center of the crystal dome. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as hundreds of alien beings watched her every move. She could feel the weight of their attention like a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders. "Honored members of the Confederation," Sarah began, her voice clear and steady. "We thank you for your concern about human activities in the galaxy." Chancellor Vexithala's misty form shimmered with what might have been surprise. "You thank us. Admiral, perhaps you do not understand. This is not a discussion. This is a formal demand from the United Civilizations of this galaxy." "I understand perfectly," Sarah replied, "and our answer is no." The dome exploded with sound. Aliens of every shape and size began talking, shouting, or making whatever noises their species used to express shock. The translation devices worked overtime, filling the air with overlapping voices in hundreds of languages. "Silence!" the Chancellor commanded, and her voice somehow cut through all the noise. The dome became quiet again, but Sarah could feel the tension growing stronger. The Hive Queen Zaxth rose on her hundreds of crystal legs. Her many eyes focused on Sarah like laser beams. "No species has ever refused the guidance of the Confederation. You cannot simply say no to the combined wisdom of 800 civilizations." "We can," Sarah said, "and we just did." A new alien stood up. This one looked like a living flame wearing a spacesuit. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound like crackling fire. "The humans do not understand what they are rejecting. The safe zones we offer are not prisons. They are protection. Beyond those zones lie horrors that ended entire civilizations." Sarah nodded. "We know about the horrors. We've met some of them." Another wave of shocked sounds filled the dome. An alien that looked like a walking tree made of silver metal stepped forward. "Impossible. No species has contacted the entities in the forbidden zones and survived." "Humans have," Sarah said simply. Dr. Marcus Webb stood up and joined Sarah in the center. "In the past 50 years, we have made contact with 23 different forms of life that your records claim are extinct or mythical." Commander Rosa Vasquez stood up next. "We have also defended our colonies against 17 different hostile alien species that your scouts somehow missed when they surveyed those regions." Professor Jin Watanabe joined them, carrying his tablet. "And we have learned things about physics that your science has never discovered by studying the very phenomena you tell us to avoid." Lieutenant David Okafor was the last to stand. "We have also learned something else, something that explains why you are really afraid of us." The Chancellor's form grew brighter. "Explain yourself, human." David activated his tablet, and a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared in the air above them. The safe zones controlled by the Confederation showed up as small blue dots. The rest of the galaxy was marked in red. "Your safe zones cover 0.3% of the galaxy," David said. "In 50 years, humans have explored more space than your entire Confederation has touched in the last 10,000 years." "Those regions are forbidden for good reason," the Chancellor said, but her voice sounded less certain than before. Jin stepped forward and added his data to the map. New information appeared in the hologram. "We found the ruins of the old empire, the one that came before your Confederation. the one that built cities on 1,000,000 worlds before something destroyed them. The dome fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the translation devices seemed to stop. "You didn't explore those regions because they were dangerous," Sarah said. "You avoided them because you were afraid. Your entire civilization is built on hiding from something that happened thousands of years ago." An alien that looked like a jellyfish made of light began to pulse rapidly. "The predecessors fell to forces beyond our understanding. We learned from their mistake." "No," Marcus said. "You learned to be afraid. We learned to be curious." Rosa stepped forward. "While you have been hiding in your safe zones, we have been making friends with the powers that destroyed the predecessors. Not all of them are hostile. Some are just different." "Impossible," the Hive Queen declared. "The entities in the outer regions are antithetical to organic life." "Some are," David agreed, "but others are just lonely. They've been waiting for someone brave enough to talk to them." The Chancellor's form began to flicker. "You are claiming to have diplomatic relations with the very forces we have spent millennia avoiding." Sarah smiled. "We're claiming that while you were hiding, we were exploring. While you were avoiding contact, we were making friends. And while you were staying safe, we were learning that the galaxy is much more interesting than your maps show." A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a living crystal formation with eyes scattered across its surface. "Even if what you claim is true, it changes nothing. You are one species against the wisdom of 847 civilizations. You will accept our guidance or face the consequences." "What consequences?" Sarah asked. The Chancellor rose higher, her misty form growing larger. "Complete isolation. No trade, no communication, no assistance. Your colonies will be marked as forbidden zones. Any human ship found outside designated areas will be detained. And if we refuse, then you will face the combined military might of the Confederation," the Chancellor said. "We will not allow one reckless species to endanger the stability we have maintained for 10,000 years." Sarah looked around the dome at all the alien faces watching her. Some looked angry, others looked confused. A few looked curious about what she would say next. "Chancellor," Sarah said, "I think you misunderstand something important." "What is that?" Sarah activated her own communication device. The hologram above them changed, showing incoming messages from across the galaxy. The aliens in the dome leaned forward to see better. "We didn't come here to ask for permission," Sarah said. "We came here to give you a warning." The messages in the hologram were not from human colonies. They were from the entities in the forbidden zones. Ancient machine minds, energy beings older than stars, and collective consciousnesses that spanned multiple galaxies. And they were all talking about humans. "The bridge species seeks to expand," one message read. "We find this acceptable. The persistent ones wish to bring their pet civilizations into the deep regions," said another. "We are curious to observe this development." "The humans have proven themselves worthy neighbors," declared a third. "We will permit their passage through our territories." The dome was silent for a long moment as the aliens read message after message. Then the Hive Queen spoke in a voice that sounded like she was speaking for 1,000,000,000,000 minds that were all terrified. "What have you done?" Sarah Chen looked at the Hive Queen's terrified expression and felt something she had not expected to feel in this meeting. She felt sorry for them. "What have we done?" Sarah repeated the question. "We did what humans always do. We went to see what was out there." She gestured to her team, and they began adding their data to the hologram floating above the dome. The display changed from a simple map to something much more complex. Charts, graphs, star charts, and communication logs filled the air. 50 years ago, when humans first left Earth, we found your border markers. Dr. Marcus Webb explained. Signs that said, "Danger, do not enter," in 800 different languages. "Those markers exist for your protection," Chancellor Vexus Thala said, but her voice sounded weak. "We thought so too at first," Marcus continued. "But then we started finding things that didn't make sense. Habitable worlds marked as deadly, rich asteroid fields marked as forbidden, entire star systems labeled as avoid at all costs when our sensors showed nothing dangerous about them." Commander Rosa Vasquez stepped forward. "So we started investigating. We sent scout ships beyond your borders to see what was really there." "And what did you find?" asked an alien that looked like a walking flower made of metal. Rosa smiled. We found paradise, worlds more beautiful than anything in your safe zones, resources beyond imagination, and life, so much life that we couldn't catalog it all. Professor Jin Watanabe added his information to the display. We also found ruins, cities that once held billions of beings, space stations larger than moons, technology that our best scientists are still trying to understand. The predecessors, the Chancellor whispered. The predecessors, Jin confirmed. They built an empire that covered half the galaxy. They had science that could reshape reality itself. They created artificial worlds and moved stars to better positions. They were incredible. And something destroyed them, the Hive Queen said. Yes, Sarah said, but not what you think. Lieutenant David Okafor activated another section of the display. We found their final records. The predecessors weren't destroyed by hostile aliens or cosmic disasters. They were destroyed by fear. That is impossible, declared an alien that looked like a living storm cloud. Fear cannot destroy a galactic civilization. It can, David said. When they first encountered the entities in the deep regions of the galaxy, the predecessors were afraid. Instead of trying to communicate, they built weapons. Instead of seeking understanding, they chose war. The hologram showed ancient battle sites. Entire solar systems had been turned into graveyards. Planets were cracked in half. Stars had been extinguished. They fought a war against forces they didn't understand, Sarah explained. And they lost. But not because the entities were evil. They lost because they refused to listen. Marcus added more data to the display. We found records from both sides of the conflict. The entities in the deep regions weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were trying to communicate. They wanted to share knowledge and learn about organic life. The predecessors saw their attempts at contact as attacks, Rosa said. They responded with violence, so the entities defended themselves. The war lasted for centuries, Jin continued. Both sides lost billions of lives. In the end, the surviving predecessors retreated to the regions you now call safe zones. The entities withdrew to the deep regions and waited. Waited for what? Asked the Chancellor. For someone brave enough to try talking instead of shooting, Sarah said. The dome was silent as the aliens absorbed this information. Finally, an alien that looked like a living crystal spoke up. You're saying that our entire civilization is based on a misunderstanding. Not a misunderstanding, David corrected. A choice. Your ancestors chose safety over discovery. They chose isolation over communication. They built their civilization on the decision to stay small and hidden rather than risk contact with the unknown. And what choice have humans made? The Hive Queen asked. Sarah activated her personal communicator. The hologram above them changed again, showing real-time feeds from human colonies across the galaxy. We chose to be curious, she said. The feeds showed incredible things. Human cities built inside living space creatures that were kilometers long. Humans working alongside machine intelligences to build new worlds. Human children playing with alien beings that looked like living starlight. This is Colony 7, Sarah explained, pointing to one feed. The locals are energy beings that exist in 12 dimensions. It took us 3 years to figure out how to communicate with them. Now they help us understand physics that your science says is impossible. Another feed showed humans and aliens working together to repair a damaged planet. This is New Hope Station. We built it with the help of machine minds that are older than your sun. They taught us how to heal worlds that have been poisoned by industrial accidents. A third feed showed something even more remarkable. Humans were sitting in a circle with beings that looked like living shadows, sharing stories and laughing together. The Shadow Collective, Marcus explained. Your records call them world devourers. We call them friends. They don't devour worlds. They clean up pollution and restore damaged ecosystems. They've been trying to help fix the galaxy for thousands of years, but no one would talk to them. How many? The Chancellor asked in a whisper. How many what? Sarah replied. How many of the entities have you made contact with? David consulted his tablet. Direct diplomatic contact with 47 different deep region civilizations, trade agreements with 31, defense pacts with 12, and friendship treaties with 6 of the oldest entities in the galaxy. Friendship treaties? The Hive Queen's voice sounded faint. The entity you call the Star Eater actually creates new stars to replace ones that are dying, Rosa explained. The being your records name the planet killer builds new worlds for homeless species. The consciousness destroyer helps species evolve beyond their physical forms when they're ready. You gave them names based on your fear, Jin said. We gave them names based on friendship. Sarah looked around the dome at the aliens staring at her in shock. For 10,000 years you have hidden in these safe zones, while the galaxy grew stranger and more wonderful around you. You convinced yourselves that staying small was staying safe. But the galaxy doesn't work that way. What do you mean? Asked the Chancellor. Sarah's expression became serious. The safe zones are shrinking. The entities in the deep regions aren't expanding toward you. You're falling back from them. Every generation you abandon more colonies. Every century you mark more regions as forbidden. You're not staying the same size. You're getting smaller. That's not true, protested an alien that looked like a walking tree. Jin displayed his calculations. In the past 1,000 years, the Confederation has abandoned 47 colonies and marked 68 star systems as too dangerous to inhabit. You're retreating, not staying still. And at your current rate of retreat, David added, you have perhaps 2 centuries before you have nowhere left to retreat to. The dome erupted in panicked sounds as aliens began talking to each other in their own languages. The translation devices couldn't keep up with the chaos. Sarah raised her voice above the noise. That's why we're here, not to ask permission to explore, but to offer you a choice. What choice? The Chancellor asked. Come with us, Sarah said simply. Stop hiding, stop retreating, help us explore the galaxy and make friends with the beings you've been afraid of for 10,000 years. And if we refuse, Sarah looked sad, then we'll explore without you, and when the safe zones finally collapse, there won't be anyone left to remember that the Confederation ever existed. The chaos in the dome continued for several minutes before Chancellor Vexithala managed to restore order. Her misty form had grown dim, and when she spoke, her musical voice sounded strained. You ask us to abandon 10,000 years of careful survival, she said. You want us to trust beings that our ancestors died fighting against. This is madness. Is it? Sarah asked. She gestured to her team, and the hologram above them changed once more. This time, it showed something that made several aliens gasp in recognition. These are the Watchers, Dr. Marcus Webb announced. The display showed massive structures built between stars, each one larger than a planet. Your oldest records mention them as the first sign of the coming destruction. According to your histories, when the Watchers appeared, the end of the predecessor civilization followed within decades. The Watchers still exist, Commander Rosa Vasquez said. We found them. We talked to them. An alien that looked like a living statue made of gold stood up. Impossible. The Watchers are extinct. They must be. If they still existed, they would be watching us right now, Professor Jin Watanabe finished. And they are. Jin added new data to the display. The view pulled back to show the current star system, the one where this meeting was taking place. Around the edges of the system, barely visible against the darkness of space, were shapes that didn't belong there. They've been watching this meeting since it began, Lieutenant David Okafor said. They wanted to see what the Confederation would do when faced with the truth about humans. The Hive Queen's thousands of eyes all focused on the display. If the Watchers are here, why haven't they destroyed us? Because they're not destroyers, Sarah explained. They're exactly what their name says. They watch, they observe, they learn, and when they see something interesting, they make contact. They think humans are. Interesting, asked the Chancellor. They think humans are unprecedented, Marcus said. In all their millions of years of watching the galaxy, they've never seen a species like us. The display showed records from the Watchers themselves. Images of countless civilizations rising and falling across the eons. Some grew large and powerful before destroying themselves. Others stayed small and safe until they faded away. A few tried to contact the deep region entities and were destroyed in the resulting conflicts. Every species makes the same choice, Rosa explained. They either choose safety and eventually fade away, or they choose expansion and eventually destroy themselves, fighting against forces they don't understand. Until humans, Jin added. What makes humans different? Asked an alien that looked like a walking flower made of crystal. Sarah smiled. We're too stubborn to stay safe and too curious to start fights. The display showed human first contacts with various deep region entities. In every case, the same pattern emerged. The entities would try to communicate. Humans would try to understand. When misunderstandings happened, humans would try again instead of attacking. The machine collective that you call the World Devourers first contacted us by taking apart one of our colonies, David explained. They were trying to study our technology. Most species would have seen this as an attack. What did humans do? The Chancellor asked. We built another colony and invited them to take that one apart too, Sarah said. But we asked them to do it while we watched so we could learn what they wanted to know. The hologram showed the interaction. Human colonists standing beside massive machines, watching as their buildings were carefully disassembled and studied. The machines worked slowly and gently, making sure not to harm anyone. It took 6 months, but we finally figured out how to communicate with them, Marcus said. They weren't trying to destroy anything. They were trying to understand how organic beings think and build things. The energy shepherds were even more confusing, Rosa added. They kept moving our ships around in space. We thought they were attacking us. But you didn't fight back? Asked the Hive Queen. We tried to figure out the pattern, Jin said. It took us 2 years to realize they were trying to keep our ships away from dangerous cosmic phenomena. They were protecting us. The display showed more examples. The Shadow Collective cleaning pollution from human colonies. The Star Builders creating new systems for human expansion. The Dream Weavers teaching humans to communicate across dimensions. Each contact was difficult, David admitted. These beings think in ways that are completely alien to us, but every time we made a breakthrough, we learned something incredible. And every time we made friends with one entity, Sarah said, they introduced us to others. The hologram changed to show a vast network of communication across the galaxy, hundreds of different entities talking to each other and to human representatives. The deep region entities aren't isolated from each other, Marcus explained. They're part of a galactic community that has existed for millions of years. They trade information, share resources, and help each other with projects that span centuries. You're part of this community now, the Chancellor asked. We're junior members, Sarah said. We're still learning the rules. But yes, we're part of it. An alien that looked like a living flame spoke up. If this community has existed for millions of years, why didn't they help the predecessors? They tried to, Rosa said, but the predecessors were too afraid to listen. The display showed ancient records from the entity community, messages trying to explain their intentions, offers of help and friendship, attempts to share technology and knowledge. The predecessors saw every offer as a threat, Jin said. Every attempt at communication was interpreted as an attack. When the entities tried to physically approach their worlds, the predecessors opened fire. The entities defended themselves, David continued, but they never wanted a war. Even while they were fighting, they kept trying to find a peaceful solution. The war ended when the last predecessor fleet retreated to what are now your safe zones, Sarah said. The entities could have followed and finished the war. Instead, they agreed to leave you alone. For 10,000 years, they've honored that agreement, Marcus added. They've stayed in the deep regions and watched your civilization from a distance. They've hoped that someday you would be ready to try again. And now humans have changed everything, the Chancellor said. It was not a question. We didn't mean to, Sarah said. We just wanted to explore. But when the entities realized we could communicate without fighting, everything changed for them too. The hologram showed the entity community as it existed now. What had once been a loose network of ancient beings had become something much more organized. They were building new projects, sharing resources more freely, and expanding into regions of space they had avoided for millennia. They're excited, Rosa explained. For the first time in millions of years, they have organic allies who can help them understand the galaxy from a different perspective. And they're grateful, Jin added. Humans have given them something they never had before. Hope that they might someday make peace with organic civilization. The Hive Queen's voice sounded very small when she spoke. What do they want from us? Nothing, Sarah said. They've survived for millions of years without the Confederation. They don't need you. Then why should we trust them? Sarah's expression became serious. Because whether you trust them or not, they're going to keep growing. The entity community is expanding. Again, for the first time since the predecessor war, They're building new structures, exploring new regions, and creating technologies that we can barely understand. In 200 years, when your safe zones collapse, they'll be there, David said. The question is whether you'll still be hiding from them, or whether you'll be working with them to build something incredible. The dome fell silent as the weight of this information settled over the assembled aliens. Finally, an alien that looked like a living geometric pattern spoke. If we agree to this alliance, it said, what guarantee do we have that the entities won't destroy us like they destroyed the predecessors? The same guarantee humans have, Sarah said. None. But we've learned something important about dealing with the unknown. What's that? Sarah looked around the dome at all the different alien faces watching her. Sometimes you have to take risks to survive. Sometimes the safe choice is actually the most dangerous one. And sometimes the only way to find out if something is friendly is to be brave enough to say hello. The silence in the crystal dome stretched on for what felt like hours. Sarah Chen watched as hundreds of alien beings processed everything they had learned. She could see fear in some faces, confusion in others, and growing excitement in a few. Chancellor Vexathala was the first to speak. Her misty form had stabilized, but she looked somehow smaller than before. You have given us much to consider, she said. This alliance you propose would fundamentally change our civilization. We cannot make such a decision hastily. We understand, Sarah replied, but there's something else you need to know. She activated her communicator one final time. The hologram above the dome changed to show a star chart of the entire galaxy. Red dots appeared across the map, marking locations far beyond the Confederation's safe zones. These are human colonies, Dr. Marcus Webb announced, all established in the past 50 years. The aliens stared at the display in shock. There were thousands of red dots scattered across regions they had considered forbidden for millennia. This is impossible, the Hive Queen declared. No species could expand so quickly. We had help, Commander Rosa Vasquez said simply. Professor Jin Watanabe added more information to the display. Green lines appeared, connecting the human colonies to massive structures in deep space. The entity community has been helping us build a transportation network. These conduits can move ships across the galaxy in days instead of years. They shared this technology with you? Asked an alien that looked like a walking tree made of silver. They offered it to everyone, Lieutenant David Okafor said. But we were the first species in 10,000 years to accept their help. The Chancellor's form brightened with anger. You have been secretly colonizing the galaxy while negotiating with us? We haven't been negotiating with you, Sarah said calmly. You called us here to demand our submission. We came here to give you information. What information? Sarah gestured to her team. They began packing their tablets and notes, preparing to leave. That in 6 months we begin the next phase of human expansion, Sarah announced. We're going to explore the galactic core regions. The entities there have agreed to let us pass because they're curious about our pet civilizations. Pet civilizations? The Hive Queen's voice sounded offended. That's what they call organic species, Marcus explained as he shouldered his bag. But they don't mean it as an insult. They're genuinely curious about how organic beings think and act. They want to study us. Study us for what purpose? The Chancellor demanded. To learn, Rosa said. The same reason we study them. Understanding each other makes everyone stronger. An alien that looked like a living crystal formation stood up. You cannot simply leave. This assembly is not finished. Sarah looked at the alien with something that might have been pity. Yes, it is. You called us here to contain us. That's not going to happen. You threatened us with isolation and military action. We've shown you why that won't work. Now you have a choice to make. What choice? Sarah walked toward the center of the dome, her team following behind her. Their footsteps echoed in the massive space. You can stay here in your shrinking safe zones, hiding from the galaxy and pretending you're safe, she said. Or you can join us in exploring what's really out there. And if we choose neither? The Chancellor asked. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face the assembly one last time. Then in a few centuries, when the last of your safe zones fails, the entities will find empty worlds and abandoned space stations. They'll study your ruins and wonder what happened to the species that was too afraid to say hello. The dome erupted in chaos as aliens began arguing among themselves. Some demanded that the humans be stopped by force. Others called for immediate acceptance of the human offer. A few began making plans to abandon the Confederation entirely. Through the noise, Sarah heard the Hive Queen calling out, "Wait, what about our colonies? Our people? We cannot simply abandon everything we have built." Sarah smiled. "You don't have to abandon anything. The entities don't want your worlds. They want to help you expand beyond them." "How can you be certain?" asked an alien that looked like a living flame. "Because they told us," David said. "They've been waiting for 10,000 years for the Confederation to stop being afraid. They're excited about the possibility of finally meeting you properly." "But what if you're wrong?" the Chancellor asked. "What if this alliance leads to our destruction?" Marcus adjusted his bag and looked back at the assembled aliens. "What if staying here leads to your destruction? Instead, you've been retreating for 1,000 years. How is that working out for you?" Jin walked past several aliens who reached out to stop him. "The galaxy is vast and beautiful and full of wonders you can't imagine," he said, without slowing down. "But you'll never see any of it if you stay locked in these safe zones forever." Rosa paused at the dome's entrance and looked back. "We're not asking you to trust us," she said. "We're asking you to trust yourselves. Your ancestors were brave enough to travel between stars. Don't you think you can be brave enough to travel between galaxies?" The arguing in the dome grew louder as more aliens joined the debate. Some species were already sending messages to their home worlds, asking for guidance. Others were demanding immediate votes on the human proposal. A few had begun making contact with human representatives through emergency channels. Sarah reached the massive crystal doors that led out of the dome. She placed her hand on the opening mechanism and paused. "The galaxy is changing," she announced, her voice carrying over the chaos. "It's becoming more connected, more cooperative, and more alive than it has been in millions of years. You can be part of that change, or you can watch it happen from inside your safe zones." She activated the door mechanism. The crystal barriers began to slide apart with a deep humming sound. "In 6 months, human exploration fleets will begin moving toward the galactic core," Sarah continued. "Any Confederation species that wants to join us will be welcome. Any species that wants to stay home will be left in peace." "And any species that tries to stop us?" the Chancellor asked. Sarah turned back one final time. Her expression was not threatening, but it was absolutely certain. "The entities have been very clear about that," she said. "They consider humans to be under their protection now. They would not be happy with anyone who tried to harm us." David added the final piece of information. "The Watchers have been recording this entire meeting. Every entity in the deep regions will know what happens next. They'll know which species chose cooperation and which chose fear." The 5 humans walked through the crystal doors and into the corridor beyond. Their footsteps echoed behind them as they moved toward their ship, leaving behind an assembly in complete chaos. Behind them, the dome filled with the sounds of 847 different species, all trying to talk at once. Some were planning to follow the humans into the unknown. Others were preparing for war against them. Most were simply trying to understand how everything they had believed about the galaxy had turned out to be wrong. As Sarah and her team reached their ship, she activated her long-range communicator. "This is Admiral Chen," she said. "Mission accomplished. The Confederation knows about our alliance with the entities. Recommend we proceed to Phase 2. The response came immediately from human colonies across the galaxy. "Acknowledged, Admiral. All exploration fleets are ready for core region deployment. The entities are standing by to assist." Sarah looked back toward the crystal dome, where lights were flashing as alien ships began launching in all directions. Some were heading home to report what they had learned. Others were coming toward the human ship, hoping to negotiate immediate passage to the colonies. "What do you think will happen?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled as she watched alien ships of dozens different designs beginning to follow their ship away from the meeting point. "I think," she said, "that the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place." Their ship activated its jump drive, disappearing into the vast darkness between stars. Behind them, the ancient crystal dome sat empty for the first time in centuries, while across the galaxy, civilizations that had hidden in safety for 10,000 years began preparing to explore the infinite unknown.